pontificate here, Dennis. So week one, what I've seen is the typical overreaction, paint
Oh
with a
yeah.
broad brush kind
Yep.
of thing,
Yep.
and it's happened every year. What I what I have liked is a few voices have made comments about past year's week one and
Yes.
making comments about who was the hot thing. And uh, I think what, maybe for a poster is I've got some touch data and whatnot. Maybe first 3 weeks, is that predictive of, say, the
Ooh, I
last
like it.
four or five?
I like it.
In
Yep.
other words, is there some positional thing? In other words, are some positions more believable? Like, quarterbacks, if things are happening, then kind of see within a season, not because I do a lot of work between because we're trying to
Yes.
predict in preseason. And so using that year to year is a way you approach that data. But now I'm talking within the season for
Yes.
trades and acquisitions and these kind of things. So it's another direction of research. So I definitely want to do that. Like I said, I need interns because we should already have that data. And so people
Yes.
bringing it up, but they don't have any stats or position specific or any kind of thresholds. I mean, that is it needs to be. There's no stats that I've seen really, Dennis, other than just anecdotal. That's what happened last year, and that's kind of the state of the art in the data metrics
Yes.
here. And as you said, cherry picking, is it cherry picking or not? That's
Oh,
that's
yeah.
that's why that's why stats exist, because if you everybody has a point of view, and it's always nice to be right about something. I mean, it sucks to be wrong. I mean, that's just human
Right.
nature. The old days, if you were wrong, well, you probably you love these stories. You were eaten by the saber-toothed cat. Like, well, I wonder if something lives in that cave. Is there a cave rabbit in there or what? Something good to eat. And well, your not your ancestors, but the ones that failed, they're dead. They stuck their head. Anything in here? And the saber tooth got them, right? So, uh, that kind of thing. And it's just, uh, everybody wants to be right, Dennis. Everybody does. Everybody wants to tell you that they're right. And that's why they get cranky at fantasy receipts, because fantasy receipts, you know, look, if it was fantasy receipts for good cause, and I know there are mirror sites that try to say that when pundits are right, that's no fun. We love, to throw the rotten tomatoes at the bad acts, right? I mean, it's no fun. Well, I brought this bucket of tomatoes to throw at the actors. I mean, what are you going to do now? Hey, they put on a great show. You want them to fail. So there is something to that makes us sad as human beings. We should all be sad, but it's I mean, think about it. In our leagues, we want our league mates to lose. So
Oh, yeah.
we there's a lot on the line to be right or wrong, and not maybe money, but just that's why we have stats, Dennis. That's why we have hypothesis. That's why we have testing. That's why, at least you and I have seen, we work more for the questions and the research projects, not trying to concoct some way to make you look good or not good. That's not how we talk. We talk about research. I wonder what that is. It's more than a question. You and I address questions or think about questions. And our problem is we don't have people. We need, like I said, interns to do those questions. And we'd have more posters to have out there, and more understanding.
Yeah, and the biggest challenge early in the season is trying to decipher what is just a fluke event and what is a trend. And I'm always remember, I've been talking about it all preseason and getting people hyped up. Zamir White had a touchdown in the first 7 minutes of game one last year, week one, and people were victory lapping it, and he didn't have another touchdown until like week 9 or 10.
Right.
Also, Justin Jefferson, I'm always reminded of this. As a rookie, so hyped and was going to do so great. And all of a sudden, he comes out first game, 4.6 points on 3 targets. Game two, 7.4. And I remember people, oh, another rookie bust. And as soon as they got that out of their mouths, he went for 30, 14, and 39 over 3 of the next 4 weeks. And it was like, light him up and, let him go. And then he got hurt coming out of the bye week and was slow for 2 more weeks. And everybody's, oh, he's just a flash of the pan. He can't handle the NFL. And as soon as that came out of their mouths, he reeled off 21, 17, 26, 27 points in the next 4 games and had an insane finish to the season as well. I mean, you just don't know sometimes what's real and what's not. With veterans like Jamar Chase, AJ Brown, Devonta Smith, they have bad games week one, and they're going to turn it around because they've got the legacy of doing that. But other rookies, you're just never sure of what you got until you get well into the season. But I'm always reminded of the Justin Jefferson effect, or when people are complaining about how slow a guy is, adjusting to the pro game in preseason. I'm reminded that Jamar Chase couldn't catch a football because it didn't have a stripe on it anymore. And how did that work out his rookie year? These are the kinds of things that I think people feel obligated to share and make some bold statements because they have to fill the air 24/7 with hot takes every day of the year. Football, I remember playing fantasy football when you really didn't even start thinking about it until August. And now we're year round. And that's just crazy that people feel obligated to come up with a hot take of the day. Whereas I look at stuff and I see something peculiar in the stats and I feel like I should share that. But I'm not sharing it to say, oh, this guy is the greatest or he's the worst ever. I'm just showing that, man, this was unusual. And unusual usually does not back itself up with another performance the following week.
The things that, and probably should have my rant and rave, but things that I've been thinking about this week are and reminded is the streaming of the tight ends conundrum. That's
Yes.
what I've been engaged with a lot of my fab decisions. And then I look back and kind of reminded myself that this has gone on before. And I think I need to, we need some more work in the tight end. And
Yeah.
I think the blocking aspect of the tight end, that's what I feel like I'm weakest in. And I don't know metrics because if they're on the field, that gives them a chance to catch something. And I don't think I'm by touches or, I mean, snaps maybe, but I need to think about, because targets are important, but I think snaps for tight end, in other words, I don't think it's the same as uh, you know, I think we need more information. I don't even know how to express the question yet, Dennis. I haven't decided enough to even formulate a good question to test. But I know I'm dealing more. That may be because I'm nailed down the running backs with the better than zero. I've
Yeah.
gotten the boss wide receivers. I've usually got fairly good streaming quarterbacks. So I'm kind of like, okay, I've got a check mark by most of those, and it's the tight end I'm dealing with. And that doesn't mean I have, the best wide receivers or running backs. A lot of what I'm seeing, and probably rightly so, is depending on how the draft went, I'm probably stronger at one than the other. And I'm
Yes.
used to that. I'm used to
Yeah.
that. But tight ends, I feel like if you don't have, and up to Kittle's injury, I felt like, if you didn't have the top two or three, but now I think everybody's in free fall. And the scoring last week, there wasn't anything just overtly dramatic to where other,
Yes.
like a Kelsey kind of 30-point game, to
Right.
where,
Right.
yeah, I didn't see a lot of that. So we're struggling to hit median, right?
Yep.
Median is probably close to 12 points. So if you got 12 points, you probably did damn good last week, out of your tight end. So that's what I'm feeling. And I'm just reminded of it again. I think I forget about that, Dennis. And I've heard some of the other pundits say the same thing, but nobody really has any kind of, oh, what do we need to do about it, kind of, other
Yes.
than draft early or stream. That's what I've heard. But then there's no, how do we stream, or what are we looking for? I mean, I feel like that's not as defined as some of the other positions.
No, and you're absolutely correct that I think it's harder to read sometimes at tight end than it is at the other positions because here's the thing. Like if a wide receiver is on the field 80% of the time or 78% of the time, like Mark Andrews was there, well, Mark was 75% of the time, I'm feeling pretty good that they're likely to get targeted. But with
Right.
the tight end, when you've got a guy like Andrews or TJ Hawkinson is another one, he got 80% of the snaps. Now, Hawkinson had 4 targets. But if you were watching that game Monday night, he was also required because of the way the Bears were playing defense to do a lot of chipping on the edge before he went out. Andrews was stuck in that same mode, and Andrews only got 1 target. So you
Right.
got these guys that you were worried about health. You were worried about how many snaps they would play. They
Mm-hmm.
got 75 to 80% of the snaps, which for a tight end is terrific, especially tight ends like those guys.
Right.
Yet Andrews only got 1 target. And you're left wondering, okay, why? But I'm thinking it was more game script than player bad, that kind of take. And I'm not sure how you can read that. And that's versus tight ends that do not have as great of a second receiving option on a team, such as McBride, where there's no question he's the 1 or 1A as far as the entry with Marvin Harrison.
Mm-hmm.
or with Indianapolis, where it was Pittman and Tyler Warren, the rookie.
Mm-hmm.
And they're not real tight ends either. So they're not required to block. There was another tight end. Mo Alley Cox was out there for a high number of snaps. Oglethorpe was out there for a number of snaps. They could play the traditional tight end role. Warren was more a slot guy. And those are the confusing situations where at tight end, it can really hurt you. But that's why the tight ends have such low MVP index scores or low com scores versus other positions. Like the top 3 tight ends are the only ones with a really good com score. The tight ends 4 through 7, which look good in fantasy points at the end of the year, they are a little topsy-turvy. And it's getting to the point where I'm thinking the way the game is evolving that this year, the 2 tight ends that I thought were value plays that could turn out to be as good week to week as Bowers and McBride. Now, they weren't going to be beating those guys, but they'd be close enough that they wouldn't hurt you. And your team would be better because of the running back or wide receiver you took early, combined with either Kelsey or Tyler Warren. Now, can the rookie keep it up all season? That's a mystery, and I don't have a clue. I thought he played a really good week 1. But it's so tough to read, which is why I even in tight end premium, I have such a hard time spending a first or an early second on a tight end. I don't care who they are. It was even tough when it was Kelsey, and Kelsey was Kelsey, where he was just all world. And it was still a sacrifice. You knew you were giving something up, but the way the game has evolved, I think if I had to take a choice and I had to say, okay, you got to plant your flag on having either an elite tight end or an elite quarterback, which would you prefer to roster? It would be an elite tight end. Because I think the first 3 give you such an advantage. Then 4 through 8 are pretty close. And then 9 through 22 are all fairly close. And that's the game you have to play at tight end. And I do like that streaming option as a result. You know you're not going to beat McBride or Bowers, but are you going to keep your team in the game? And that's where on the segment that I do with Greg Kellogg and Rick Bercelis every Tuesday night, the Snap Crackle Pop over on the sports affiliation,
Yeah.
I have to be pop. I'm picking the guys that are outside of the top groups, the sort of the sleeper picks of the week. Now, this week it was easy because we had so many bad picks or bad players week 1.
Yeah.
But when you're picking a sleeper at tight end, if I get 8 points out of that guy, I'm doing backflips. I don't care if he was in the top 12 or not. If I get 8 points from a sleeper play that I had to go to, that to me is a winning week, because 12 is your median at running back and wide receiver. I got to believe that if you look at the tight end as a position, you're talking a median that's closer to 8.
Okay.
So if I get 8 points, I'm happy.
So what I did while you were telling us stuff, I went ahead and got some box and whisker, and I looked at tight ends, 5 or more targets, wide receivers, 5 or more targets last week. Wide receivers here, Dennis, 28-3.
Wow.
Tight ends, 15-5.
Yes.
And this is on a scale of 30 PPR points to 30. So look at the tight end, how squished. The median was 11.7. So the median tight ends is traditionally the good ones are the median is close to 12 and a
Yeah,
half.
for the
But
top tight
look,
ends.
yeah, but look at the top quadrant, 18 to 28 wide receivers. Tight ends, it's about 13 to 15. And you probably guess that must be what? Number wise? Number wise, Dennis, here's the ones that have 5 targets.
Yeah.
It's what is it?
Yep.
15. Here's the ones here. And it's 50.
Yeah.
15 to 50. So 3 times less. So if you randomly grabbing tight ends, uh, you had a third of a less chance of getting one that's going to be significant versus a wide receiver. So in your flex last week, tight end wasn't good for a
No,
flex.
no,
No,
never, almost never is. Yeah.
never is. So that's the conundrum, is picking then the ones that are just getting 5 targets, Dennis, just 5. And maybe it's calm of targets, not calm of points,
If
is
you,
maybe a way to, maybe
yes,
that's another research question. Maybe that's how I should look at this data. You see, folks, I didn't even consider that until now. But that when I have time, Dennis, that's what inspires me. And by the way, look at some of these PPR points. Look at Jake Ferguson had 5 targets, 7. Njoku, 6. Dalton Schultz, 5 points. Hunter Henry, 10 points. I mean, those are, you know, 8 targets. Hunter Henry, I mean, if you look at targets, points per target, it wasn't good last week. Juwan Jennings was the best, but he had 11 targets to get you 15.
yes, yeah. And here's the thing.
Yeah.
Can you forecast who's going to get 5 targets? And can you predict
Yeah.
that at
Yeah.
tight end with any regularity? Because,
There
guy,
so you're talking variation between weeks. And see the
correct.
calm, I think calm of targets might be a way to go. So
And I would
need to put
say,
that in our notes, calm of
yes,
targets.
yeah, I wrote myself a note, forecasting consistency of targets, 5 or more,
Yeah.
because it tight end, that's the whole game right there. If you can get 5 or more targets predicted,
You got a shot, but you
you
got a
got a
shot
shot.
at some sucky numbers. Whereas with wide receivers, I mean, you're doing pretty good on some of them. I mean, not. I mean, we can
Yeah,
look at the efficiency, Dennis. If I stained, some of these here's, whatever, 8 targets, and if we looked at those, I mean, there's some, especially down here. You see what. Where does the wide receivers? So right now, I would say close to 9 targets. Look at a lot of those failures, and it looks at 10 targets or more roughly, and look at how much better it is. I mean, the average is 18 fantasy points,
yeah,
and here is 13. So there's some other things to think about here. So can we forecast who's getting 10? Maybe that's, kind of the level. In other words, with the target kind of comes the points. I mean, I think that's what Reedy, you and me, we always say opportunities, and we're
yes,
counting on this kind of data. So I'm not worried about how many fantasy points. I'm looking at how many targets, how many snaps, opportunities. I think that's the ball of wax here. And I think I, need to look at it. And of course, I didn't look last year, Dennis, on tight end I just didn't have time with everything I was doing last year. I need to kind of circle back to looking at touches and tight ends and things. I know they are predictive year to year with running backs because I did a poster on that.
Oh yeah.
I
Yep.
don't know how predictive tight end or wide receiver. Maybe that's, maybe tight ends are not, it's not predictive statistically. Wouldn't that be interesting in other words, you have to deal with them differently. So different methods are suggested, folks. That's why when you do these questions, you find out a negative helps you. Negative data is not to be shunned. It gives you, information. And if touches last year doesn't help you for tight ends this year versus it helps you for running back, that's very important to know because you're not spending time on tight ends and touches if it doesn't help you. You're going elsewhere. And
Yeah.
that's the information we need as well. So that's some side questions that we need to deal with as well.
Yeah. We've concentrated so much on points scored, and that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense when you're doing
Mm-hmm.
research to concentrate on what counts in
Yes.
fantasy football, which is points. And but we do chart and watch the touches and the volume
Right.
and understand that with more volume comes more opportunity. With more opportunity comes more points. And at tight end, it's even more critical because here you're look at how tight that average is.
And, Dennis, if I subtract the touchdowns from these guys, look at
Yes.
what happens now. If we look at that with tight ends and we look at that, you can see that, targets about 8, about 7, and look at the drop. I mean, you're gone. So again, hunting those targets, the break here may be different than and wow, look at the
There weren't a
wow.
lot of touchdowns by
Yeah,
wide
look at
receivers.
that,
Yeah,
Dennis.
it was
Shit.
wild. It was wild this week.
Wow. See, I've
I
never looked at that.
Yeah, so in the article
Wow.
I was doing this week where I
Look
was
at that.
recapping where I was
Debo got,
oh,
that's the only one.
that's
That's
it.
crazy.
And Jefferson got into the end zone, but he had such few targets for the day that
Yeah.
touchdown bailed him out. But
Wow.
when I was doing my waiver wire article, my all 32, looking at every team,
Wow.
it stunned me how
Wow.
few touchdowns were scored by
Look
wide
at
receivers.
that.
It was a real down week for the
But
big
is that
wideouts.
expected week one? I hadn't even checked that. There's you another
No,
question.
no, and that's the
Wow.
thing is every time we uncover one of these peculiarities, you need to test to see how often this happens. And we
Not a lot.
know
Yeah, that's
we
oh, Debo got a rushing. That's
he
rushing,
got a rushing touchdown, yeah.
but still, look at that. That
Oh
is
yeah.
that's
Yeah,
not
there
a
were very,
lot.
very few. Very
Yeah,
few
in the
guys.
top. Yeah,
Yeah.
look at that. Okay. Well, that's data. That's what I hadn't had time to look at here, Dennis, at all. But I did want to bring that up that the tight end and the data and the distribution of things is clearly different. They are not the same position. You cannot treat them the
No.
same.
No, and I've always known that, but I haven't known exactly where the breakdown was. Seeing this five,
Yeah,
this
5 targets,
barrier.
and I just arbitrarily grabbed 5.
Yeah, to look at that being so tight
Yeah,
is very intriguing. But because what that tells me is I
that's going to be a lot of
I look
variation.
at this variation, but look at how tight the numbers are. And even with the touchdowns, if you throw the touchdowns in there for some of those guys with 5 targets,
Yeah,
it's all tight scoring. You're going to be around median if you get 5 targets. That's
yeah,
what this data tells you. Whereas 5 targets with wide receivers, the variance was huge.
Yeah.
And here you're only looking at 15 guys. I'm
Yeah.
curious now, how many tight ends? Here's another question.
Yeah.
And I'll be doing this research this week.
Yeah.
How many tight ends see 5 or more targets?
Yeah. You see that kind of thing. And so, folks, that's why Dennis and I have spoken. And if you can find somebody as nutty as you are about fantasy, this is the kind of discussion, especially off season when you have more time.
Yeah.
More relaxed time to do. And, that's a good thing as well. And that may be worth a poster, Dennis.
Yes. Yeah. There's a lot of these questions that will jump out at us. This is why I take notes every week. And I keep, we always talk about having a fantasy football diary. Well, this season, I've got 2 spiral notebooks, one that I'm using for our shows.
Yeah.
And every week that something is discovered in the statistics, I write a short note to remind myself. So at the end of the year, as long as I don't lose these 2 notebooks, we're all set. The other notebook is for my pop segment over on the sports affiliation. And I want to see, are there some mistakes that I make in looking for sleepers? Are there some advantages that pay off regularly looking for these sleepers? Is it something that is forecastable, or is it something you're only doing as a desperation play when you have an injury or a bye week?
I mean, last year, Dennis, we had 9 that had 5 targets, even worse than this year. 9.
I think the number is going to vary between about 7 and in about 16.
Yeah.
That would be my guess.
The year before, we were down to 17. So you could just chart week 1. You see, that's the kind of data in 2022. It was.
And I'm wondering,
15.
Do tight ends, because there's sort of that check down along with running backs, how does that vary during the season? The old adage that offenses are always behind, the offenses are always behind defenses to start the year.
Yeah.
Are we seeing more tight end targets early in those first couple of weeks than we see elsewhere?
Later.
How is that target distribution
over the season? Yeah, that's another
research
thing.
Yeah, and again, we get so caught up in chasing points. We remember that it's more important to chase volume.
Yep.
But we still look at points scored and consistency of points scored, because that's what this game is all about.
Yep.
But if you can unlock these little secrets throughout the year, with some good research, some honest research that just looks at the numbers, because here's the thing, it's like, it doesn't do us any good to go spout off, look how tight this is.
Yeah.
If you can forecast 5 targets a game, because we don't know if we can forecast it.
I don't know.
But if we knew that we could forecast 5 targets a game, let's say based on game script, maybe it's even more detailed than we need to get. But we talked to some of the defensive experts like Iggy and Gary Davenport. What if there really is this thing called a shutdown corner? Maybe if a team is going up against a really good cornerback or 2, maybe the tight ends get to eat more. I don't know. There's so much. First of all, we got to check and see, is this forecastable? What are the trends of volume for tight ends? And if it's something that we can predict, then we look at the circumstances in which guys had big jumps. Was it because they had a great that team had a great pass rush they were going against, or had a great secondary. What are the variables that resulted in higher targets for tight ends? If we could ever figure that out, Professor,
Yeah,
then we'd be streaming our guys and doing well.
Yeah, just I do want to kind of add an editorial for the few that listen. Thank you, the two or three who listen. Uh, None of what we just said or did was scripted. It's just
No.
I was thinking about
Yes.
and tight ends and it's a conundrum, and then we led to here, and now look at all the questions, and now all this is swirling in my head. And I mean, that's, people say, just that's why I hate to give you the fish. I want to try to teach you this process. And it may seem, I don't want to say the word easy, but it may seem to be just rolling off of us, just like a snap. And it's not. This is a culmination of doing forecasting, predictions, stats, our horse racing, our game theory. It's a synthesis of who we are, given our background, and books we've read, things we've seen, uh, and I think that's a secret to get better, is kind of short term understanding stats and some of these key points and what opportunity is, yes, but long term is kind of staying even off season, educating yourself, getting it's kind of like, I guess, exercising. If you're going to go do something, like if I'm going to throw a shot put, I better get some strength in my arms. And, you don't wait till the week before the throw to start doing something. I mean, this is, I guess, we have dedicated as pilgrims along the research highway in fantasy football. We've kind of dedicated ourselves to this, and this is what we've been trying to do here, is learn these things. So I would suggest, you take your notes. Your diary is a good way to do it. Reading books, thinking about things, finding somebody else. And no offense to anybody, I understand there's if you guys are meeting at the bar and end up, slapping around, that's not, you do that after you put some intense thinking sessions. Our podcast is the way that Dennis and I focus on that. It makes us do that. So this is our mechanism. Maybe you should do your own podcast with two or three of your guys. You just can't play in the same leagues because you don't want to cut each other's throat. But maybe that's a way, is have a round table and sit around, and then after you've done some intellectual work, then go blow off some steam, that kind of thing. But that's it. It just hit me that I think the scripted side, Dennis, and no offense to anybody that scripts, but I think you miss that. You miss the exploration and the discovery. I like our podcasts are not for just dissemination. Our podcasts are for Dennis and I to learn and think about questions. So a lot of podcasts is disseminating knowledge. That's fine. They're trying to help you out that way. Great. We try to do more than that. Maybe that's how we distinguish ourselves, Dennis. I don't know how we do that, but that's what I think. If somebody asks us our podcast, what's different? We're using our podcast real time investigation and research, and you can hear it happening even and see it shared even as we do it. How about that?
Yeah, and both of us have been doing this pattern recognition stuff long before we came to the fantasy football world. But both of us have been playing fantasy football over 25, 30 years plus. But pattern recognition is a scientific thing. It's a scientific discovery. In meteorology, it's all about, getting a good consensus forecast or finding the right model that is fitting the pattern that we're seeing unfolding before our eyes. In horse racing, it's all about identifying different pace handicapping, criteria. How many speedsters are in this race? Well, you can figure that out by the data, but if there's 5 or 6 speedsters in an 8-horse field, not all of them are going out to the lead today because they're not going to just all cut each other's throat. And who is going to be? Can one of those 5 of 8 speedsters adjust their pattern of what they can do? Those are the things that you have to figure out. And in fantasy football, when you see a stat that is so tight, like that number for tight ends, 5 or more targets, I'd be happy with any of those players in my starting lineup, any of them. Because, and this shocks people when I say stuff like that, because if I get 8 points from a player, I'm not unhappy. Yes, I don't want 8 points from the guy that I drafted 101. But if I'm picking a player to start for me and he has 8 or more points, he didn't kill me that week. I've got a chance to rally somewhere else for the big points. And it's all about being consistent, being the kind of team, if 125 points is top 4 in a particular league, that's what I want to be shooting for every week. Yeah, I love it the weeks I get 200. But I don't want any weeks more than 5 or 6 or 7 points under that 125, under that top 4 level. I want to be consistent week in, week out. And that is something that has gotten sort of cooked into my brain because of how we score leagues over an FPPC. Yep. Over an FPPC, like in a matchup league where it's all about wins and losses as the primary thing that determines who goes to the playoffs, I don't care about one horrible bye week and one horrible week. That's like 1 week I can write off. But in FPPC, I can lose 100 points in the standings. And it's all about standings. It's all about point standings. It's not about win-loss until you get to the playoffs. So that little quirk in FPPC has got me thinking more along the lines of being consistent week in, week out. That's why I do fairly well usually in guillotine leagues, where the bottom guy is gone every week. I usually will last. Like, I've never had a guillotine league that I've done, and I've been doing them the last 6 years. I've never had a guillotine league where I was out, one of the top 8 guys out. I made it deep. I made it to the last 4 or 6 teams because I'm so damn consistent week in, week out. I don't have that horrible week. And in the guillotine leagues I'm in this year, 100 points is all you need to score to advance. And I was like, every one of them, I was over 115 week one. So, and I had some bad games. I had Xavier Worthy in a few lineups. I had AJ Brown in a lineup, but I survived because the rest of my players were consistent and picked me up. Yeah. But every team was at 115 or higher. That's how you got to think in fantasy football. You have to think along the lines of putting up a good, consistent score. Don't worry about what your opponent's playing, even in matchups. Just put out a good lineup that is going to score, and you're going to do okay in the wins and loss department. It's going to, the bad luck where you go up against, when you're playing a matchup league, when you go up against the team that's, you're the second highest scorer in the 14 team league. Congratulations, you played the best team. You're 0-1 for the week. I don't worry about that. I just want, am I in the top 4 every week? That's what I strive to finish. And if I can be close enough to that top 4, I'm going to have a good season. But you're right, Professor. So many of the good research ideas come out of this podcast because we're always asking questions. We're not giving just the answers.
No.
That'll make you better in week 2. We're not even thinking so much about week 2 early in the podcast. We're looking at the big picture.
Yeah.
How can we predict success over the course of an entire year?
Yep. That's what I'm thinking.
All right, Professor, it's time to jump on in and start the old podcast now that we were good and warmed up with all this good chit chat and research. Now we just have to find about 10 interns during the off season. Here we go. How you doing, everybody? Welcome to the science of fantasy football. Why the science of fantasy football? You get a meteorologist and a biologist together. They're going to use the scientific method. And all that means, folks, is we're using statistics in a smarter way. And if you use statistics in a smarter way, I think you're going to be surprised at how good you're going to get at this thing called fantasy football. And join me as he does each and every week, twice a week, and now 3 times a week. My goodness, Professor, this is turning into a full-time job now that you're retired and I'm semi-retired.
I agree. It's here we go again. We are trying to figure things out. It's week 2, lots of stuff happening. Your article that I know we're going to talk about, a lot of stuff to go over, and there's injuries and things. I don't know if you have a gripe. Maybe it's too early to have gripes here. I made some comments about in the pre-show a little bit, but nothing to where I'm big time fussy. My overall last week, I had some great and I had some not great. A lot of I have too much when they do bad. Too much AJ Brown and Devonta Smith, play them both. Socked me down in several leagues. There that didn't help, and there were some other things that didn't help as well. So it's a weird week. There was not as many touchdowns as I thought wide receivers could have got. So that was a downtime. There was a lot of things that are still sorting out, and we still have things sorting out, Dennis. And the waiver wire was people said it was the worst waiver wire they saw. Maybe for running backs, but for me, I thought wide receiver was about on par. And tight ends are always scrambling, free for all, reaching for the next, probably overreaching for the next situations. In pre-show, we pointed out the issue with targets and tight ends and just how hard it is in that position, maybe versus wide receivers. And that's a skill that everybody needs to continue to work on and hit your diary hard on your tight end picks. And I'm sure there's streaming going on this week. I know, Dennis, in your article, Juwan Johnson was spoken of.
Yes.
Tongas at San Francisco was discussed. There's some other ones that were out there, and it gets crazy. There's just not a lot of tight ends that are getting 5 targets or more. And maybe half the league, there was a tight end that got 5 targets. And point wise, 15 points was top dog last week, whereas 28, almost 30 was for wide receivers. So almost half, of the top points was tight ends versus wide receivers. So you have double the hardness of finding a viable tight end. And there were about 40, almost 50 wide receivers with 5 targets. There were, what did you say, 15 tight ends? So about half the league had 5 targets, and there wasn't a lot of touchdowns in those. They were just people catching things. And that was, if you're in a standard league, Dennis, imagine that, how rough it would
Ooh.
be. I could see if people played in standard leagues, which I guess people do that. I don't, but man, why even have tight ends? I mean, it's just, you know, it's crazy. So, but in PPR and tight end premium, even, you do have shots at the 1.5 per catch helps you. I'm not sure it shouldn't be 2 points per catch or something, maybe, and or maybe a sliding scale that if you could catch 5 or more targets, maybe you should get 2, or so, maybe that's a sliding, to reward more the elite tight ends. If you get 10 or more, maybe 3 points or something. Really skew it that way. That'd make everybody extra crazy if you did that. So anyway, lots to talk about. I'm sure you got stuff to talk about, the injuries and thing. A lot of surprises, Dennis, this week, and maybe not some surprises this week.
No, and it's way too early to victory lap.
Oh,
Okay,
that's just assuming.
you're
Yeah.
not going to victory lap, but here's the thing, folks. There are some players that, when I did my MVP forecasts this year, that I liked a lot better than where they were being drafted. And it was guys like Etienne, Travis Etienne, Michael Pittman, Herbert with the Chargers, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, who I've been down on the last couple of years versus ADP, and I thought he was a bargain this year. Egbuka, the rookie with Tampa Bay, and Tyler Warren. Now, Tyler Warren, he went from being a super value early in the season to being priced pretty premium. Like he was going 6th, 7th round by late in the draft season. And that was getting kind of pricey for me, but I was getting him at rounds 9 and 10 early on. And I even got him really late in our draft night out league. So those were guys that they rated really well. Yet if you asked me straight up, and I drafted a lot of them, like I stayed, if my ratings say a player is going to be good and that player is priced cheap, and all of those guys were priced incredibly cheap in ADP versus what I forecasted them for MVP, I am going to draft them. Even if, like Travis Etienne, I was nervous about him losing touches. So I did back him up with Tootin, backed him up with some Bigsby, more Tootin than Bigsby. And now Bigsby's gone. So we don't have to worry about a three-headed monster in Jacksonville. And I'm feeling really good about that. So while it's too early to victory lap, those are 7 players, Professor, that I was on much higher than their ADP. All 7 started pretty darn good. And there weren't any guys that, like CMC, for instance, my rating said he was worth a late first round pick. Once you get to about the 8th pick in the draft on, and deeper, he was a good value, but I had a hard time picking him at that point because there were other safer guys. He paid off. So there weren't any players that I was really high on that had anything more than a peculiar bad week, like AJ Brown and Devonta Smith. Those guys, and I wasn't even drafting as much as that of them as I have in the past. It wasn't I didn't like them. It was just that there were other players that were priced around them who I liked a little bit more. So while it's too early to victory lap, I was very pleased with how my value play guys did, just like last week, we were talking about how my 5 late running backs, my 5 really late running backs, were all guys that moved up in ADP from the early part to the latter part of the draft season. I love seeing that. Hate seeing it because I don't get the guys, but I love seeing it because it's the noise and the consensus is saying they are going to be pretty darn good. Now, will they all pan out? Probably not. But the key is, just like week 1, good volume. It's not the points for Etienne and Pittman and Herbert and Brees Hall. It's the volume for all those players that really impressed me. I wasn't sure if Herbert was going to be throwing the ball a lot. If this is a sign of how much volume we're going to get out of Herbert this year, I'm glad I got him on my teams. I was getting him as my quarterback too. So I didn't have as much of him in the lineup as I wanted week 1. But now I know I've got a guy that I might be able to pivot to. I'm going to wait and see if this volume holds. But everybody else, Etienne, Pittman, Hall, Garrett Wilson, Igbuka, ran those, and Tyler Warren, ran them out in my lineups week 1 with confidence, and they paid off. So I'm very pleased with the start of the season. I'm not so pleased about some of the injuries. Oh, my goodness. Friendly fire in that Kansas City game that we talked about last week.
Crazy.
Worthy with a separated shoulder, still waiting on word of whether he'll go to IR. Kittle did go to the IR this week, so he's gone for a minimum of 4. How about James Cook showing up with the questionable label on him this week? Uh-oh. We have a lot of Ray Davis. We have a lot of Ray Davis sitting on our benches.
Really? I haven't even heard that.
Yes, so he is probably going to play, but that's pretty early in the season to see a questionable tag on him already.
You're wondering, does this, the wheels come off the bus, a little early here, Dennis? That's not good.
Yeah,
go ahead.
Very, very concerned about that injury for my James Cook shares. But
Dennis, I got to brag, 16, so 40% of my 40 leagues, I have Ray Davis.
I love it. I love that. And here's the thing.
I am ready to collect.
Every league that I grabbed James Cook, and it wasn't a lot of them, but every league where I drafted James Cook, I have Ray Davis.
Yeah.
In a high percentage of my leagues.
Yeah.
I think it's over 70%. I have Ray Davis on that roster.
Yeah.
And it was a guy that I just drafted, and I knew I'm not using this guy unless there's an injury. And I wasn't rooting for a James Cook injury, but what I'm saying is, when you got that next man up, he's kind of like the Bucky Irving pick from last year, because it's like, I didn't know if Bucky was going to be better than Rachaad White.
Yeah.
I just knew that if anything happens to Rachaad White, he's the next man up. And so that's how you've got to play this game when it comes to running backs.
And Ty Johnson, is the next guy up after Ray Davis, or is there somebody else?
There probably would be somebody else, but Ty Johnson is going to be the third down and passing down guy. He's always going to be out there in the 2-minute drill.
So for a dollar play, if you got a deep bench and you think Cook is, you're starting to get a little worried about him, that might be, a speculative ad.
Yeah, because there really isn't anybody else who would be, they might even, let's say the worst happens and Cook is out and all of a sudden Ray Davis goes down in the middle of the game. Ty Johnson's going to get all the volume for that game and for the next couple. I don't think they've got anything else on the bench that would be better than Ty Johnson
or something.
Yeah, probably will. And they won't give, they're not going to give 30 carries to Ty Johnson, but if he gets 5 targets, 6 targets a game to go with 5 to 10 carries, all of a sudden he becomes a guy that you might be able to plug in the flex in a bye week. Now, again, not somebody you invest lots of fab money in, but but a dollar holler will go a long way. The other injuries that I'm keeping an eye on this week,
Okay.
Drake London
Yeah,
was
I
listed
knew.
questionable.
Yeah.
Neighbors listed questionable. Both likely to play. Purdy and Rogers both showing up on the questionable list, but both should play. Purdy's is a little more serious of a shoulder injury than Rogers. And then
I heard Purdy has a toe issue as well. Have you heard that?
yes.
So he's got two issues.
He's already beat up in after week one. And
Lovely.
in breaking news out of Miami, apparently Tua is colorblind. Did you see some of the passes that he threw this weekend? He had a wide open receiver.
Yeah.
The only problem is the guy was wearing the wrong color jersey. Like he threw it right to the defender. Oh, I swear the guy's colorblind. It was, I couldn't believe.
You're harsh.
Oh, I was harsh. I went harsh because Tua is a guy that I have a few shares of as my QB 2 or 3, and I'm abandoning ship. What I saw, ugly, ugly. When you see me write a waiver article and I put Zach Wilson on for a $1 holler, that's an indictment of how I feel about Tua right now. That's not saying Tua can't turn it around, but boy,
what was he doing in the camp then? I don't understand this panic. I mean, where did that come from? I'm just kind of amazed that we're here.
Yeah, that whole Dolphin team has been a bit of a train wreck this year. I liked Waddle because he was cheap. I stayed away from Tyreek Hill.
Yeah,
because he was at that.
Yeah.
I got
zero Hill. Yeah,
Zippo Tyreek Hill, except in a couple of dynasties where I still have a few leftover shares. Waddle, I was buying, but I was also buying as my WR4. That's how cheap he was. So I figured, worth the speculation.
And I'll tell you, concerned Ollie Gordon.
Oh,
I mean, if it's a train wreck, how does he even? That to me that ruined his early season value.
Yeah, I really thought I bought into the hype last week that Ollie Gordon was actually going to get some reps, and so when Jalen Wright was out, and the only thing they elevated from the practice squad was Jeff Wilson, I was like, oh my goodness, we're going to see at least 10 touches for Ollie Gordon. Well, the offense was so pitiful that they didn't get enough plays to even know what we were getting.
Yeah.
But they wrote A-Shane. And of course, A-Shane came into the week, with a minor injury. I didn't worry about that. He was out there every play.
Yeah.
And Ollie Gordon got nothing. Like he didn't even get a chance. And I look at that Miami team right now, and I would call it a train wreck, but that would be an insult to train wrecks. Like this is far below train wreck status. If this doesn't turn around in the next 3 or 4 weeks, that's going to be the first. That's going to be the first coach that's fired. They just look like a mess.
You're telling me they're going to be able to survive if this week is the same?
If this week is the same, I'm thinking that ownership won't fire the coach quickly, but there could be some shakeups. I don't want anything to do with the Dolphins in my starting lineups this week until they show, or until the next few weeks, until they actually show me something. Like I'll be fine with Waddle going off for 25 points sitting on my bench, because I don't think the chance of that happening is really that high. He's one of the guys that I invested in, and he was cheap. So I don't care. It's all upside at the place he was being drafted. So if I miss, I miss. But I'm not happy because I could have had some other guys that, have impressed me early on. One rookie that didn't post much in the way of points, but I was very impressed with is that Elek Ayomanor. Ayomanar. I don't even know how to pronounce the guy's name, from Tennessee, the rookie. He got almost all the snaps. Like he was over 80% in snaps week one. 4 targets, I believe, did not result in a lot of points. If he's on the field that much and Tennessee gets any better at playing offense, Ward looked good at times to me, and then he looked lost at times. In other words, he looked like a rookie quarterback. If he gets it together like I think he can, that rookie could take over as the top wide receiver. I've got a bunch of him sitting on my rosters, just waiting for that to happen. And he was one of my bolder fab plays this week. I said $75. He's my third up at wide receiver.
I have him in 7 leagues. So.
Yeah, Kayshon Boutte is a guy that I've liked since his early in his LSU days.
That was one of my questions. So take me through that. I don't have enough of Boutte. I have put money over Calvin Austin. That was my question to you. We had that discussion.
Yes.
And you convinced me the back class, the college, the just the dentist feeling kind of thing. I'm trusting you. Ever since you found Puka, I'm on the dentist bandwagon. You found him late.
Yes.
Never gonna let you forget that, by the way, because
I
was greedy. Instead of 6 or 7 teams that you finally clued me in on late August, I could have had him earlier and been extra greedy and had more money in my pocket that season. That's sad, Dennis.
One of the big improvements.
I don't know. You need to be chastised more about that.
And Kyron Williams the same
I'm going to have to pick off your plate at Denny's, subtract a bacon tax or something so that you're contrite about that failure. Anyway, that's it. Bacon tax.
There, it's going to be a bacon tax. One of the things that we've gotten better on in the last couple of years is sharing that information, because you forced me to talk about opportunity.
Yes.
And those are the kinds of guys. But when it comes to Boutte, so this guy coming out of high school was a 5-star athlete. He was supposed to be all world, and he really was early at LSU. And this is a team with LSU, remember, that had a lot of other wide receivers that were ahead of him on the depth chart when he got there as a freshman, and he still looked good. But he just wasn't getting as much of the reps because you had just these all-world guys at wide receiver that were being drafted ahead of him. And as those guys left for the pros, Boutte went up the depth chart and really had a solid year his sophomore season at LSU. And then he started having some injury issues. And if he had not had an injury his final year of college at LSU, I really think early in the season they were, I pay attention to the smart guys, that play the college fantasy football. And they were raving about this kid and saying how good he was. And then he got hurt. He started having these minor injuries. They were forecasting, the people that are pretty good at this, like the John Lobes of the world, they were forecasting him as a possible first-round draft pick the year he came out of LSU. And he was hurt. He was just battling all kinds of injuries, and he never has. I mean, he's shown some spark last year for New England, but again, he couldn't stay on the field with injuries. This is a player with that back class, just like Quentin Johnson with the Chargers has that back class. These are guys that at one time in their college or even high school careers, they were considered one of the best coming out. And for whatever reason, either injuries or just in case of Quentin Johnson, it's just been erratic play. And some guys adjust slower to the NFL game than others. That's a natural thing. But both of these guys look really solid. And again, it wasn't about the points. The points are great. It was about the targets. Because if you're getting targeted that heavy by your team in week one, that quarterback's got a lot of confidence in you. And I love to see that in a younger player. And that's, of course, why I drafted a lot of Quentin Johnson. I've got a lot of Iomanar on my teams. Didn't have enough Boutte. I've got him in some best ball leagues because the big question for New England was who is going to be the top wide receiver? Diggs is the favorite to be the heavy target guy. But people were saying, oh, maybe it's Kyle Williams. I was on that bandwagon. Maybe it's Kyle Williams, the rookie. Maybe it's even Demario Douglas, who's just like the quickest guy out there. But maybe it was going to be Boutte. Maybe it's that back class. You know, New England traded for him. They didn't draft him. They wanted him on their roster. So I'm thinking they made some good decisions. And he's my top fab guy. I'm willing to go 150, and I don't know if that's going to be enough to put him on my roster, but that's how much I'm willing to bet on him out of $1,000 pool. That's a pretty good chunk. I mean, we're talking 15% I'm willing to put on Boutte this week, just a little bit ahead of Quentin Johnson at 100.
Well, the article that if people need, I've shown here, I'm sharing. All 32 looking forward, reasoning backward after week one, and the amount of material, Dennis, is embarrassing here for one article. Look at this. It's folks, even if your waivers have gone, this is an opportunity for trading, opportunity for first call or for first serve waivers, fab bidders at FFPC. We go tonight, so I'm looking and then wrapping it up, and he's showing the fab for FFPC. I like LaQuint Allen, Neal, and I think I'm going to put Batty in for $1. I agree with the dollar plays. Boutte, $150. That's aggressive over Quentin John. That's flip-flopped over what people would say.
Yes.
And
but the reasoning behind that, Quentin Johnson has ahead of him already on the depth chart. Ladd McConkey didn't disappear. He's still there. Keenan Allen is a future Hall of Famer, in my opinion. He still looked good last week.
Yes.
And then you got a rookie by the name of Trey Harris that will play into a role on that team.
Yeah.
That's three guys that he's got to go up against. Boutte has Diggs to beat.
That's it.
Because Demario Douglas is just that little spike play guy who's just going to be spreading the field, showing off some speed, but probably not a guy they're going to rely on. Kyle Williams isn't ready yet, the rookie. I think he will be better as the season goes on.
Right.
Boutte is a field stretcher kind of guy, but he's CeeDee Lamb light. Okay. Right. He's not as good as Lamb, but that's the kind of game he has where he can stretch the field, but he can also get you that big comeback, move. He's just fast. He's a good athlete who seems to be learning this game at the
Mhm.
NFL level. So I like his chances quite a bit. And, you know, I'm not a real aggressive fab guy early in the season unless it's somebody I really like.
Mhm.
Because in FFPC, we have to save some money. We
Yeah.
always are spending money on kickers and
Mhm.
defenses every week.
Mhm.
And there will be somebody at the running back position that comes out of nowhere still.
Yeah. I do want to just critique. I would put odd dollars.
Yes, that's correct.
So,
That's correct.
156, right? Quinn's
Yes,
103, a
yes,
78,
correct,
that kind
correct.
of thing. And $6, $7 for these guys. The dollar
That's
people
correct.
are fine. That's what I would do, folks.
I do like to go occasionally with a $2 or a $3 bid
Yeah,
if
you
it's a
could do
guy I
that.
really want.
That's fine.
But I agree. The reason
Yeah,
I
I know
think in
you just
percentages,
yeah, yeah,
and,
yeah.
and so I keep things rounded. But you are
Yeah,
right. When you put your actual bid in,
in and make it a little strange, just
yes,
different.
I like
What
that.
I did, Dennis, is I anything over that seemed extra significant, I put in red. So you
Yes,
can
I
see
like
this
that.
week, nothing really in quarterback to where
No,
it's,
no,
or, the dollar doesn't mean dollar plays are not important, but you need to weigh what you have. And if you have a
yeah,
deep bench and you have room, then Batty, Neal, Allen are worth, down there. And I would put Ty Johnson, now that you said Cook, for
yeah,
$1.
yeah.
I would
I think that's a
shoehorn
good
him
play.
in
I think that's a
just
good play.
just to make just there. If and Dennis, at some point, I don't play short benches, so I have not had a lot of
No,
research
no.
on that. So Dennis and I are skewing away from that. So
10-player benches here.
yeah, my advice would be quit those damn 5 bench leagues. Find you one with 10. That way you can dovetail on what we're doing. That would be my advice. And if you've got a home league, you need to vote to change it. You need to do fab and you need to do deeper benches. Come on. Y'all can do better than that.
Yeah, and
And
one
yeah,
thing that I noticed as I was looking, because I play in a couple of ESPN leagues, I play in an NFL fantasy league, and I play a lot on Sleeper.
right.
And over on those leagues with the smaller benches in redraft, there
Yeah.
were guys like Woody Marks that would have been making my fab budget list for this week, because I
Right.
think he will still emerge. I wouldn't play him week 2 or 3 until you
Yeah.
see him do something. But when I looked at FFPC,
Oh,
he was
you're
owned
not
in
gonna find Woody
almost every
Marks.
league, almost every league.
Yeah, you're
So
not.
yeah,
You could find these people.
oh yeah,
You can't
yeah.
find Woody Marks.
No, 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 no.
No,
And
he's gone.
even guys like Blake Corum are gone, and
Oh yeah,
Jaquez Hunter are gone. Like it's lean right now on FFPC, but that's why our strategy with the deep benches
yep,
drafts a lot of running backs,
yeah,
because
yeah.
those
We do.
guys are harder to find than the wide receiver plays.
Yeah, and then I wanted you to talk a little bit about why Dwan Johnson. I know why, but is below Tongas and Fanning. Why? Why do you have Fanning? I would have put Tongas like 75, but for a short term. Anyway, so uh I've got Johnson cheap, like $12.
Yeah, yeah.
And
I went
Fanning,
aggressive with
Dennis,
him.
I can't find him in any of my leagues.
No, no, he was in very few leagues, but I ran
Tongas is
into him.
there.
Yep.
So tell me why Tongas over Johnson. That was my real question. Fanning is gone. If Fanning was there, this is fine. But Tongas over John. Why that versus the flip?
So
That was my question.
Juwan Johnson had a fabulous first week. There's no question about it. But he's got guys by the name of Chris Olave
Uh-huh.
and Alvin Kamara that are going to be taking more targets away from the tight ends. So that's why I'm a
Yes.
little bit down on Juwan Johnson. When you look at Tongus, he's a direct replacement for Kittle, and he looked pretty good out there. And we have never seen this guy do anything except for a support role because
Yeah.
Kittle's been staying healthy.
Yeah.
And the reason I like him is because nobody else is healthy in that
Yeah.
receiver group. You got
Right.
CMC who's going to take a lot of targets.
For
And
a
you got,
while
yeah,
until he gets hurt. That's what I worry
yeah,
about him.
or slows down, and
Yeah.
they realize they have to ease him back a little bit. You got Ricky Pearsall, who looks like he is a good guy to have invested in. I liked Ricky Pearsall a lot this year, mainly because there was nobody else. Like until Ayuk comes back, I think it was going to be
Ayuk.
CMC, Pearsall, and Kittle was the entire offense for
Yeah.
the Niners, and it's a
So
good
yeah,
offense.
so you think when Ayuk comes back, he steps in as 1A or 1B?
When Ayuk comes back, I think you have a Debo Ayuk. Remember Debo Ayuk, where they
Mm-hmm.
take turns being the top dog any
Mm-hmm.
given week, and it was
Mm-hmm.
hard to figure out who is going to be the best one
Yeah.
any given week. That's what you're going to have with Pearsall and Ayuk.
Yeah.
But
Well,
here's the
so
thing is,
if Ayuk was out there, would you think he needs to be acquired?
oh yeah, yeah. If Ayuk becomes available, let's say somebody is desperate because of injuries and
Mm-hmm.
they have to get rid of Ayuk. The minute I see Ayuk fall, show up on
Yeah.
my waiver wire, I'm
Yeah.
grabbing him and
Yeah.
stashing him.
Yeah. It won't be in any of my leagues. I got him in
No.
23. Boom, baby. And I got Chris Godwin at 18, and
Yes.
I am ready. In fact, a lot of those 18, I have Ayuk as well, and I am
Yeah.
ready for the 1-2 punch. I'm hoping that I can survive and be competitive, and then those guys pick me up and really strengthen my hand here. But Dennis, I could not turn down Ayuk.
Oh no, no. I've got
Uh,
a lot of Ayuk and Godwin on the same team as my WR4 and WR5s.
yeah.
And because you got them so cheap, and they got cheaper as the season went on, they got
Yeah.
even cheaper. And there were times when I said, nope, I'm not taking anymore. And they
Yeah.
fell. And I was
Yeah.
like, I can't let this player fall again because
Yeah.
when they're healthy, they're top 15.
Yeah.
Even if they're not at their peak, they're a top 15 player. That's impossible to pass up. If you get to the 9th, 10th, and later rounds, and those
Right.
guys are on the board, you got to figure out, like, those are bench players. You're taking them instead of a guy that's just a speculative upside guy. This is not a speculative upside guy. The only thing speculative is how quick will they come back to the lineup.
Right. So, folks, you should look at this. You should read. This is worth your time. Uh, my dog agrees, Dennis. He's giving you. He says it's 3 barks and a bone. That's how he rates
Ooh,
this.
wow.
Yeah. So he's all in on reading your article once, twice, and 3 times for luck. And folks, now's the time. It's up. It's active, and please check it out here. This week I think it's really worth your time to do that. And Dennis, let me share because I know we got to move on here, but that article is great. The editor had hundreds of grammar checks, but it's all good now. All is forgiven, and you know,
Luckily I do not get a doc from my pay
yeah,
for every
for
grammar mistake that the
yeah,
editor
yeah.
has to fix.
So I guess we can move to talk about. I guess we have Thursday
Yeah.
game.
But yeah,
Oh, you got
before we
okay.
go to that,
Sure.
I just want to mention something. When it comes to the grammar mistakes, it might shock people hearing me on this broadcast every week, but English is my second language. I know how shocking that is because I'm from Chicago. Gibberish is our first language. So there you go. All right, Professor. Thursday night football.
Okay.
And we've got a matchup again that is worthy of prime time, and it's going to be wasted because it's on a Thursday night.
Dennis, you might have to carry me through here.
No worries, Professor. I can pick you up while you're trying to recover. So basically, we're looking at two of the best teams in the NFC facing off here in week 2. How crazy is that we see both of these teams having to play such a strong game in week 2? They both come in 1-0, and somebody is going to leave this game very unhappy at 1-1. But both of these teams are heading to the playoffs. Oh, by the way, I did have a minor gripe of the week. ESPN Analytics, they said, now, if I heard this right, if I didn't, I apologize. But they now have the Detroit Lions, after one loss, forecasted to only be like a 35 or 40% chance of making the playoffs. I'll take that. I'll take those odds. If they give me those odds right now of just making the playoffs, I will make that bet all damn day long. When you got one data point to skew things from a team that went to, deep in the playoffs the year before, I'm shocked that they would be, that analytics, anything they call analytics, would be that sensitive to one loss. I know there's only a 17-game season. I will be shocked, and I will apologize to ESPN formally on social media if I'm wrong, because right now I would say, barring massive injuries, Detroit is a playoff team, and I would put a 90% probability on that right here, right now.
See if I can get my voice back. I don't think I can, Dennis.
Oh, my
Keep going.
All right. So we got Green Bay and Washington. And these numbers that you see on the screen, if you're watching the video, if you're listening to the audio, you got to head over to scienceoffantasyfootball.com and you can check out all of the data that the professor will be posting on each and every game. And this matchup data is always so key. 27.5. That's what Green Bay is forecast to score. Washington forecast to score 20.5. Washington is the road team, Green Bay at home, and that's a lot of points. 47.5, the over-under at 48. That's a lot of points for a Thursday night game, folks. That gets me a little bit worried when it comes to trying to hit a big number like a 48. Yep. Two powerhouse offenses, but look at these matchups that they have to face. Tough for each quarterback, tough for the wide receivers for Washington, and below average for everything else except for Mr. Zach Ertz.
Yeah.
Looks like you should have a good day.
I think I have my voice back. Yeah. I don't have enough of Zach Ertz, but I do have some shares. And I would definitely prop bet him. I really love that. I think he's going to play a role. And if Washington can win, it's going to be with Daniels running a little bit, staying active in the pocket, and Zach Ertz. I'm scared Terry could spike a long catch. I'm just worried about his consistency with this game, with this tough scenario. And running, I think, is that Bill? Bill plays on this team, right?
Bill is the man. Yes, he had a
He
very
has
good
an
week one.
opportunity here to continue what he started last week. So it's just if Green Bay gets ahead a lot, Dennis, um, can Bill pass catch? If he can, then he can continue. But if he can't pass catch and block, then I a little bit worried about his this week. He would be flex worthy only for me. I would not put him in my main running back, 1, 2 kind of thing. He would be flex for me, depending on who else I had. Green Bay, the wide receivers are so spread. Fortunately I played Reed last week. Golden I played. So
Ah,
Dennis, I wanted you to give. I know in your article you talked about it, but what what was going on with Golden a little bit? What do you think all that meant last week, and how does that apply for this week?
so they ran the ball pretty well
Mm-hmm.
last week, and but the biggest problem is he tweaked an ankle,
Oh, yeah.
and it wasn't bad enough that he came out of the game for a long time, but it really cut down on how many plays he could be out there. They go a lot of double tight end sets. Dobbs was looking good. Jaden Reed plugged and played. So they're not going to go a lot of three wide receiver sets if they don't have to. They ran the ball well against Detroit, and that was the big key. And Golden just had a bad game. And there really wasn't much
Do you
about that.
think
It was a
rookie
bad call.
needs consistency and in there to get him up and running? Some players I think are good enough. They can step
Yes.
out, jump back in. But I'm wondering, being a rookie, he needs enough to get a feel for the game, the speed. I'm just wondering that didn't help his cause last week.
No, no, it didn't help at all. He did see about 66% of the snaps. He did get targeted twice, caught both passes, but they were both short passes.
Yeah.
And this is a guy that you think is going to be able to, or should be able to, with his speed, spread the field a little bit. But remember, I kind of talked about him being kind of that Tyreek light type of player. He's so quick that he can get that extra step. And because he's so quick, people have to respect the deep play. And he gets open, for the short passes as well. He just didn't get into the flow of the game for whatever reason. And again, you know, maybe they just ran the ball a lot.
Yeah.
Maybe that was just not in their game plan week one to really tap into the passing game much at all. And they got that lead. And when Green Bay gets the lead, I mean, Love only threw the ball 22 times. He was incredibly efficient, 188 yards, 2 touchdowns, but he did not have to throw a lot. You fed Jacobs 19 times. Like he had 19 carries. He had lousy, lousy efficiency, but just was able to rack up enough points because they just ran him enough. They just didn't open up the offense a lot,
Yeah.
and they spread the ball out. The top target guy only had 5. How many times have you seen that where the top target guy is only 5?
And Green Bay,
So
yeah.
yeah, so that was very, very low. So it was spreading the ball around. Reed looked good, and Reed was the one who got the touchdown. That was the big difference. But nobody put up big yardage. Nobody put up a good game except for Reed with the touchdown.
Yeah. Green Bay is an interesting team if you look at their home away. They rush and pass 13 and 19% more at home. It's very
Yeah.
most teams gravitate one or the other. Green Bay was, and this is 2024. Green Bay being that way is really unique, and And the other team, Washington, has some of that, but that's at home. And now away, they're 6% less, But as far as rush pass, but as far as efficiency, they're actually 6% better. So they put points in spite of not doing their usual home. So they were good efficiency away. They were overall more efficient, one of the top teams last year versus Green Bay. So 3.5, I think, is Green Bay is the home field. That's why I think if
Yes.
it was
Yes.
Washington, Washington could be, 2 points ahead or something. So I think Vegas is given the home field. They think there's going to be a lot of, uh, a lot of opportunity. A lot of the bettors are going to want to chew on Washington. So I think they gave them something to think about in the spread here. But I
Yeah.
think being Thursday, I'm suspicious, you know, the first real Thursday game, because both teams played last week.
Yes.
So I'm suspicious. I just never liked the foreign games and the Thursday. So I'm not betting other than maybe Ertz on some type of prop. I'm not, maybe Kraft and Ertz, a $2 or $1 play. That'd be about it. I don't know if it's even any down touchdown, just maybe 5 catches each or something. I don't know what you could get for that, but I don't know what the props are. But I'm not probably prop betting this at all. I'm just going to watch. I'm not shying away from playing my players. There's nobody I wouldn't play. Love, I think, is going to have to do more. So if he's a lot of places he was my two, and but where I had Dak, I played Love, and I've got to think about this week. I think Dak may get a little more run this week, so I'm gonna probably have a harder decision if I've got Love versus Dak. Jaden Daniels, I'm playing all day long. So nothing that scared me. I'm not playing the defenses, so I'm walking away from Washington this week on defense.
Yeah. If this game was being played with the regular rhythm on a Sunday or a Sunday evening, even, or even a Monday night football game where the guys had, the regular rest after week one, I would think this was going to be a high scoring game despite the props because you got two quarterbacks that just both with their mobility, Love doesn't rush a lot, but he gets out of the way of the pass rush a lot. And that's where that tough matchup, I think we've seen in the past that despite the tough matchup, a mobile quarterback can sometimes beat the odds against those tough defense matchups. And we can see a lot more points than we think we're going to get. And so I would be on the over on this, but being Thursday night and the first, as you put it so well, the first real Thursday night game, I'm very leery on it. And again, I like Green Bay with the -3.5, but I'm not putting money on it. I wouldn't bet it with your money either way.
Nope.
But I do like slightly the over and the 3.5. But again, you don't have to bet every
No, you
game,
don't.
just like you don't have to bet the maiden claimers
Nope.
out at the horse races. This is a
Nope.
race I'm staying away. But and I agree with you with Jordan Love. Jordan Love was in a lot of my lineups last week because I thought that
Yep.
that Green Bay was going to have to score a lot of points.
Yep.
And I thought I like him at home,
Yep.
and it was good weather, all those kind of things. So I played Jordan Love over, a few other choices that I have. This week, I'm going the opposite way. I'm a little bit worried about Washington, but I'm more worried about this being the first Thursday night game, the first disruption
Yeah.
to the pattern for these players.
Just wanted to talk about our Saturday we and our matchup for the sports affiliation, where we do 4 games. We will be doing Cincinnati, Jacksonville, I'm sure, and
Yes.
Pittsburgh and Seattle as the extremes this week, unless Vegas goes crazy. So, and probably Frisco and New Orleans, maybe.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I don't know, Detroit, Chicago,
That might be a
or
good game
yeah.
to
So,
feature.
but I just thought I'd show kind of, and so I divided, Dennis, the huskier and the squirrely games there, and we got some in the middle. And so on our matchup lab, we'll probably do that. And then on our regular podcast, it'll be, I'm sure we will cover Philadelphia and Kansas City.
Yep.
Imagine that, and maybe something else. So we
I think the
will,
Minnesota Atlanta game
yeah,
is
that
another
should be
one
very
that's
intriguing.
going to
So
be
Dennis
interesting match.
already has his ideas. So we will try to cover that, but we will definitely have the matchup lab through the sports affiliation coming. So that's where we're at. You should check out, was it Snap, Crackle, Pop? Dennis's
Yes.
Pop. He puts his elf suit on and comes out there and pops out his monologue with all sorts of brimstone and fire, just spitting it out, Dennis. Just hot takes, left and right, and it's a. I watched it last night. It was very entertaining, and I do like. I think Greg Kellogg has something there. I just don't know if it catches on, but you guys seem to have pretty good symmetry. So I did like the sports affiliation, the Snap, Crackle, and Pop on the YouTube. Subscribe and be their friend, and make sure you go into the comments and uh, you know razz Dennis a little bit or whatever. Give him a hard time in the chat room. So that's it, Dennis. That's all I got. If you got anything else.
No, that'll wrap it up. So head on over to the scienceoffantasyfootball.com. Check out our friends over at the sports affiliation as well.
Yep.
A lot of great shows, a lot of great data there. They also have one of the best IDP guys in the world with Iggy, who also knows his stuff when it comes to prop bets and other Vegas line betting over there at the sports affiliation. A lot of great shows. I love Joe Carlton on his show.
Yep.
Aces Up. I enjoyed watching you on that show last week. He does such a good job. I really enjoy Rick Marcellus and the job he does over there, and Greg, of course. Really great to see him doing more this year over the sports affiliation as well. So check out the sports affiliation and check out scienceoffantasyfootball.com and come back here Saturday for another edition of the Science of Fantasy Football.
Get to work, folks.
All right. We have
was good.
A wrap. That was good, man. That was No, we pretty much exhausted our entire revenue.
But
I
like that we're a podcast that we do on the fly research. That it didn't. How long? Maybe 3 years, and it finally hit me why we're different.
Yeah, and I think it's actually been. I think it's been closer to 5 years now. I got to look this up.
I don't know.
I think it's been 5 years. I think it was right before COVID. Because we were doing the show. I thought we were doing the show during COVID. I'm pretty sure.
Dennis.
I got to go back and do some research, but it's been a while.
I don't remember.
Time flies when you're having fun, Professor. That's the one thing we know for sure.
My waivers got to fly. I got about 14 teams to set waivers for here.
So
for those that are listening, I am liking New England over Miami. The last year's DAPS wouldn't lead you that way, but first week performance, I had to step in, and it said Miami was okay to use the defense, but to me, that okay became got to when I
Yes.
saw week one. So I'm
Oof.
gambling that they don't put all the pieces together and New England can, get pick six or something good for my defense. I think I have 22 shares of New England, and I'm actually trying to forge for more. The rest of them are a little lean. The Rams are intriguing. Dallas a little bit, Pittsburgh a little bit, but to me, I'm really liking the Rams and New England a lot this week in my streaming defense. Let's see, I hadn't thought about kickers yet, folks. There's been some
Uh,
kickers. Moody was let go, and just make sure you're on board with the kickers, because with us, if you make a mistake and forget, you could be
oof.
stuck with basically a player that won't score any points. So just be aware if you got play kickers, make sure you got somebody that's at least got a leg, you know, and go from there, Dennis. So that was my
Yeah.
10-cent tour of defense there for the week.
Yeah. Kickers, my tendency lately has been to grab and ride a guy who's
Yeah.
doing okay on a high scoring offense. So I've got a lot of McPherson with
Mm-hmm.
Cincinnati. I've got some, Carty with the Rams. I've got Dicker the kicker with the
Okay,
Chargers.
that's
I've,
good.
I've
I hadn't heard
I
that
got
one.
some Butker. I got some Gano.
Yeah.
I've got some Matt Gay with Washington. These guys you know, that have been reliable kickers over the years.
Mm.
Reichard with Minnesota is a newer
So
guy that
you've
I like.
got spread.
I got spread. Yeah,
Yeah.
I usually will not philosophical ways playing in so many leagues.
Mhm.
I'm mixing and matching more at kicker. I need to do some research, but
Mhm.
my gut says I'm not very good at playing kicker matchups, so I'm
Mhm.
just riding the same guy. Plus, it's less work to do on Fab,
Mhm.
and when you get a tough defense, sometimes that's good because they can't get in the end zone and they kick more. I just want a kicker on a good offense.
I
That's all I
have
want.
15 shares, almost half of Jake Elliott.
That's a good. He's another guy who's a solid kicker that
Yeah.
and Tyler Loop with Baltimore looked good as a rookie
Mhm.
week one. I'm mixing and matching, but I got a lot of those guys.
Yeah.
When it comes to defense, one of my strategies, obviously you can't always get the defense you want by the matchups, but I look at the what I call the crippled quarterback department where you got guys that are turning the ball over like
Well, like I
Tua,
said, Tua, I mean,
Tua and
New
Russell
England to
Wilson.
me,
Yeah,
just like, man, let me have it.
yeah, and I'll tell you, I know the results were not stunning, but I was pretty impressed with your well, not rookie, but Spencer Rattler with the Saints.
Yeah,
Looked like an NFL quarterback. He
and
didn't turn the ball over.
the defense was a little sparkier than I thought they would be.
You
So
might have a better season with the Saints than
more
you don't.
consistent. It
I
was,
don't think you need to get the bag out. I think they're going to be a 500 team.
yeah, and for us, that's a build, and that's good.
Well, I was very impressed with the coaching that I saw in that game.
Yeah.
They were letting Rattler try a few things. They were they gave him a lot of support, and Olave looked good. I didn't like when he went out of the game. I thought, oh God, is this another concussion protocol for him? But he was okay. Um, I just Kamara looked like Kamara. Just give him the volume and he'll score. He'll figure out a way to get fantasy points no matter how good or bad the team is. But I was very impressed by Rattler. I really thought that kid looked like an NFL quarterback. And he might hold on to that job for a while if he keeps playing like that.
Um, I like it. I like think about that. I love streaming. This week, I think I started with our pre-show about tight ends, and
Yes.
that is consuming a lot of my time this week in waivers, Dennis. And then probably in lineups, I have multiple tight ends, most two.
Yeah.
So that it's either or, and I look at the depths and I think about things and probably overthink the tight ends. So I gotta think some more on that. Seem like I don't know. Just this first week confounded me a little more than I remember. You know,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Kittle didn't help because
Yeah.
I did
No,
not
no,
draft.
no.
I drafted one Bowers in the draft night out. That's it. And then I
Yes.
had some Kittle, not as, too much, and the rest were, people that you and I debated over. Kraft, Ferguson, Strange, in that is my one. And then Ertz, well, Goddard would be in my one. I think I have some of him, but then Ertz, Otten, and Otten was a complete no-show.
Oh
He
yeah.
had three
Yeah.
targets, and I'm kind of way stepping off him, folks. Uh,
Yeah.
definitely, yeah.
I was scared of Otten because I never saw more than a few games where
But
he
boy,
really did a
Dennis,
lot.
when he was in the zone, he he he
He's
he
he's a
flashed.
he's a he's a guy like more in best ball.
Yeah, he
He had
flashed.
some spike weeks, but he just didn't have the consistency. I'm going to give you one to look for in all of your leagues
Yeah.
this week.
So
Uh,
it's
I
Tongus.
put a no, not at a wide receiver.
Oh, wide receiver.
Yeah, I know he's not available in horribly high percentage of leagues,
Mm-hmm.
but one of the reasons I went lower on the fab for Juju Smith-Schuster is because I don't think you have to bid that high.
Yeah.
I think you can grab Juju with I mean, he's available in quite a few more leagues than I thought he would be, and he's going to be a viable option. And if anything happened to Hollywood Brown, he is the last guy in town. Like it'll be eventually Jalen Royals, the rookie, or Tyquan Thornton. Thornton's another guy that had that. It's like that Keyshawn Booty uh, back class. He was all world coming out of high school and had just never amounted to anything in New England. And now he's found a new life as the field spreader. He's the Justin Watson in this
Right.
offense for Kansas City, where his whole job is just to stretch the defense. And he did a very good job of it. Last week he would have, Mahomes missed him on the one, and then the other one he just sort of he got kind of held up in by the defender. Otherwise, he would have been open for a huge chunk yards play, maybe even go the distance. But Juju is going to be the man. He looked good finding that open space. He was doing what Rashee Rice does,
Ooh.
and that's frightening. I mean, he's slow. He's old. He's not even all that old, but he looks old on the field. But he was finding the gaps, and with him and Kelsey finding those gaps, and Hollywood and Thornton being able to spread the defense, it gives that over the middle play some action. And Pacheco did not look good week one. He looks slow. And that makes me worried about that running game, but that's why I've drafted a lot of Mahomes this year. I wasn't, I played the what if the running game is sluggish? What happens? And what happens is Mahomes has to, get 300 yards a game to keep him in games again.
Yep. I like it.
But Juju, don't leave a draft.
Okay.
Don't leave your leagues. Grab Juju,
Okay. Now
even
I
if you
gotta
don't.
go look and see if he's worth a dollar
Yeah.
here. You're
Yeah. Even
telling
if
me higher than
I'd put like 5 on him.
Booty?
Yeah, no. Boutte is the guy you want,
Boutte.
but you're gonna have to spend money for him. Juju's the
Dennis,
kind of secondary bid.
I'm not bidding what I'm putting about $40 in. I'm
That
just
that
saying,
should do it. That
I'm
should do it.
saying, look, either he's, going to be mine that cheap, or somebody's probably going to overpay for him in Austin. So I
I'm
decided to
willing
be very cautious.
I'm willing to overpay for Boutte. I actually
Really?
think he's more than a 1 week wonder. Yeah, he's more. And again,
Okay. So
I hate
so
using
let
these comparisons, but this
yeah.
is how I felt about Puka
Okay.
Nakua.
Yeah.
This is how I felt about Nakua. I was
Oh,
like,
don't say that.
oh yeah,
I'm about to put money
I'm
in. No, no,
I'm telling you, this is
do
how I
not
felt
say
about
that.
Nakua. After week
Dennis.
one, Nakua, this is how I felt with Boutte, his
Oh,
first
Dennis.
week. Because this is a guy that I've had an eye on. Like Nakua was a guy that had just spotted at the combine.
So, okay. So
Boutte
you
is a guy I've
think,
loved since LSU.
so how many weeks? So this is how I've been trying to think about things in terms of how many weeks is he going to give us above median? What do you think? 8?
I think he's an 8 to 10 spike week guy if he can
Okay.
stay healthy. If he can
So
stay healthy.
yeah,
He's had an
let's
injury. He's had
yeah,
injury
yeah,
issues
yeah. Okay,
every
but
year he's played football.
so if it's 8 to 10, that you think that puts him as a WR2 type?
He's a solid 2, yes. He's a solid 2. It's
So
yeah.
okay,
And if Diggs goes down, now all of a sudden you're in Nakua territory where he's the dominant guy. He's a 10 target
so
guy every week.
so he needs an injury.
Yeah. He
So
needs an
it
injury
sounds yeah.
to be top 12 capable. He needs an injury
He
to
needs
Diggs.
okay,
Diggs is going to take the top end off of him.
okay,
But what I love about Boutte is every time it's like Rushy Rice. Every
okay.
time Rice catches the ball,
Mhm.
you think big plays coming.
Yeah, yeah,
Like or vintage Tyreek Hill.
yeah.
Every time he touches the ball, he can go
Oh,
yard.
gonna
And
cost
Boutte
me
has got
money.
that same ability where,
Dennis, you're gonna cost me money. Oh
but the
no.
thing is, does he,
Yeah,
spend it week one
yeah.
because you get those points
Oh,
all
Dennis,
year.
I want him cheap, and I want my fab, and I want the secret running back. Dennis, I want it all. I
I
get
don't
mad
blame you.
when all my 40 teams are not in first place. I mean, I just, it never's that way, but I always want it to be. I'm always greedy.
Yes. Yeah, I will be.
I
What
had a
I,
hard week with
yeah.
AJ Brown and
Oh, yeah.
Devona. That
Yeah.
that that cut me hard.
Well, here's the thing. After 3 weeks this year,
Yeah.
if I don't have 10 teams that are solid in the playoffs on FPPC, I will be very disappointed with the start of this season because
Yeah.
I think the guys that I had as my hot picks
Yeah.
are all panning out. Now, granted, I didn't have all of them in my starting lineup. I rode too much Pacheco week one, and I shouldn't have done that. I should have realized I'm going to spot play Pacheco against easier defenses.
Yeah. Me too.
And otherwise, I am going to be very cautious with him. I got a Buka in our lineup this week,
Oh yeah.
or Dynasty, and I've got
I had him last
Ertz.
week everywhere.
I've got
Yeah.
I played Buka everywhere except in our Dynasty league. And
Oh,
if I had played
Dennis,
him in our Dynasty
we would
league,
have won.
we would have won. And again, bad matchup decisions. I was like, oh yeah, we traded for Pacheco. We got to play him.
Yeah.
And it was such a dumb move. Got Ertz in for
Sam
Hawkinson.
Paulo.
Oh,
Yeah.
Should have been off of. I should have been off of him.
I wish we'd had time to talk that one through.
Yeah, we should have, and we will this week. We will dissect everything.
But now I'm gonna be broke trying to get Boutte now. It's not funny, Dennis. I'm gonna have to charge you a bacon and a half tax for this. Okay.
but here's the thing.
Okay.
I get to take a full piece of bacon if I'm right about Boutte.
Yeah, okay. I'll slide it back to you. Okay. Okay. That
All
might
right,
make up
Professor.
for Puka. Okay,
That's
let's
the
shut
new
this.
that's the new
You
game is
like that? Well, in
the
Denny's,
bacon tags.
yeah, we give them hell there. The waitress,
we
yeah,
we
we give
might, if we
them,
have
yeah,
so many good picks, we might have to both order a separate,
yeah,
an
uh,
extra
an
order
extra
of it.
ration of bacon. That's what we need. Okay,
There
let
you
me
go.
shut this business